Last week, US President Donald Trump announced that he was deploying hundreds of National Guard troops and federal law enforcement agents to Washington, D.C., as well as moving to take control of the Capitol's police department. It marks an unprecedented federal intervention in the affairs of the overwhelmingly Democrat-supporting capital city of more than 700,000 people. So, in this video, we're going to explain Trump's attempt to take over Washington, D.C., what he's doing, why it's significant, and what it means for the future. Who's the worst politician right now? Hear our thoughts and argue with us on our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard. Find it over on the TLDR Podcast YouTube channel or in your favourite podcast app. Let's start with a brief explainer of Washington, D.C.'s current position within the US. Sandwiched between Maryland and Virginia and established as the US capital in 1790, the District of Columbia, or D.C., is not part of any state, nor is it a state itself. It's instead a federal district. The 1973 Home Rule Act granted the capital limited self-governance for the first time since the 19th century by transferring powers from Congress. DC residents were given the ability to elect their own city government in the form of a mayor and council, as well as neighbourhood commissioners. But this setup comes with extensive oversight. Congress reviews all legislation passed by the DC Council before it can become law, and also has authority over DC's budget. The president, meanwhile, appoints DC's judges, and while DC residents have been able to vote in presidential elections since 1964 and have always voted overwhelmingly for Democrats, the district has no voting representation in Congress. Anyway, in his announcement last week, Trump declared a public safety emergency and promised to save the city from, quote, crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor and worse, adding that DC had been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs, and homeless people. We're not saying that there isn't a crime problem in DC, but Trump's claim that it's unprecedentedly dangerous and out of control simply isn't true. While there was a post-pandemic spike in homicides, which Trump highlighted, with the rate peaking in 2023, what he didn't mention was the sharp drop in the homicide rate in 2024, which is continuing through 2025. Similarly, since spiking in 2023, overall violent crimes fell 35% in 2024, and have fallen 27% so far this year, according to DC Police. Nevertheless, Trump announced that he was deploying 800 National Guard troops to the capital, as well as 500 federal law enforcement officers, and announced that he was placing the DC Police Department under direct federal control to crack down on crime and beautify the city. Now, in DC, it's the president that has broad authority over the DC National Guard, as opposed to in the 50 states, where governors hold the power to activate National Guard troops. So, DC has little ability to push back against a federal deployment like this, as California Governor Gavin Newsom did earlier this year. Since Trump's announcement last week, 6 Republican state governors have said they'll deploy hundreds of their own guardsmen to the capital too. However, so far the National Guard's role has been limited, and it's unclear exactly why additional troops are needed beyond being a visual show of force. There are legal restrictions on the use of the military in law enforcement, with the military saying the deployed troops' role is to act as a crime deterrent, whilst noting that guardsmen will not arrest, search, or direct law enforcement. So far, reports have detailed their seemingly uneventful patrols in low-crime areas near tourist landmarks. They have so far been unarmed, although officials have said this may change. Meanwhile, the hundreds of federal agents, from at least 10 agencies including the FBI, ICE and DEA, have been more active though, establishing a high-profile presence in daily life, conducting patrols, stopping cars, sweeping through neighbourhoods, carrying out hundreds of arrests, many of them of undocumented immigrants, and clearing homeless encampments. The increased presence of troop and federal agents has created tension with locals, who have held protests against Trump's intervention. For some DC residents, a Subway sandwich has strangely become a symbol of their frustration, after a video of a man, since charged with assault, throwing a sandwich at a federal agent on Sunday went viral. However, the response of DC's Democratic Mayor, Muriel Bowser, has been relatively restrained. She's called Trump's actions unsettling and unprecedented, and an authoritarian push. But she's also suggested that greater law enforcement presence in neighbourhoods could be positive. Bowser's response, as well as her relatively deferential approach to Trump in other matters since he returned to office, reflects DC's limited self-governance, the significant power imbalance between her and the president, and the uniquely precarious position that Washington, D.C. is in, as Trump and Republicans in Congress could try to scrap the 1973 Home Rule Act altogether, or at least try to make life harder for DC's leaders, as they already did this year by slashing $1 billion from the city's budget. But DC's Democratic leadership did respond more forcefully to Trump's most contentious move, though, which was his federalization of the DC Police Department, MPD, in which he invoked a provision of the Home Rule Act that gives the president certain powers to temporarily take over the MPD for federal purposes under special conditions of an emergency. Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi, then sought to oust the head of the MPD, Pamela Smith, and replace her with a Trump administration official. But the city challenged this in court, calling it a brazen usurpation of the district's authority. After a judge indicated they would rule against the federal government, the Trump administration partially retreated by agreeing to keep Smith in place, but also signalled that it would continue to put pressure on DC leaders and the MPD to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement, despite sanctuary laws on the city's books that limit such cooperation. It remains unclear exactly how long the current situation will last, although Trump wants to extend federal control of the MPD past 30 days, a move that would require congressional approval. Trump has also signalled that he sees DC as a sort of testing ground for exerting authority over other large Democrat-led cities, with him name-checking places like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Oakland, and Baltimore. In the context of next year's midterms, Trump may well be hoping to drive urban crime, law and order up the agenda, aiming to capitalise on the public's poor perception of the Democrats' handling of the issue. Even though the data shows that violent crime is actually on the decline across American cities, the response by Trump and his officials like Stephen Miller is simply to declare that the data is fake. The common thread between all this and some of Trump's other actions, including pressuring red states to redraw their congressional maps and calling for a new census, is to undermine the autonomy and political clout of big cities, which are the core of the Democratic Party's political strength and focal point of resistance against Trump's administration. But DC has far fewer guardrails against federal intervention, so trying to replicate his DC approach in other big cities won't be so easy. Although that doesn't mean that Trump won't try. It's safe to say that if you're invested in topics such as these, then you're also passionate about challenging yourself through online learning. While we're here to help you with that, our sponsor this week, Brilliant, are experts at pushing your learning to the next level. That's because Brilliant is an incredibly thorough learning platform designed to be uniquely effective in how you build skills every day. Their vast library of topics, from science to AI, all feature a perfect mix of engaging problems, competitive features, and daily encouragement that keeps you motivated and on track. Brilliant helps build your critical thinking skills through problem solving, not just memorizing. So, while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you'll also be becoming a better thinker. For example, if you're looking to build your mathematical intuition, Brilliant is the best place to go. Their newly updated maths courses focus on the most useful, applicable maths concepts, so you never feel like you're wasting your time. You'll start at the perfect level and work your way up through interactive challenges that bring abstract concepts to life. Whether you're at home or on the go, you can level up your maths skills wherever you are. To start your learning journey and try Brilliant for free, visit brilliant.org/TLDR, scan the QR code on screen, or you can click the link in the description. By doing so, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know that you came from us, which really helps us out.